When I was a little girl in about, maybe fifth grade, we lived in a great big two-story white frame house with big pillars in the front and a big screen porch on the back. And in those days, the driveway was not solid cement, it was two cement strips. And the garage was not connected to the house, it was in the back. And we had an apartment over the top of the garage. My grandfather was very sick, and so we had to have a nurse around the clock. And at night, the nurse would put grandfather in, tuck him in for the night, feed him his medicine, and he'd be ready to sleep. He had a bedroom on the bottom floor, and all the rest of us slept on the second floor. And after Granddad had gone to sleep, the nurse would go in and sit down in a chair right next to the driveway, and she'd sit in this big chair and read. Well, one night she went to sleep reading with the light on, and when she woke up, she heard this really weird noise. It was coming from the street, and it was making a sound. It was going swish, swish, swish as it got closer and closer to the window. And she flipped off the light and she froze. And then by the window walked a woman with long gray hair that flowed all the way down below her waist and was blowing in the breeze. And she had on a white gown that was flowing out behind her. And she was dragging something black in her hand as she came down the street, down the driveway. And as it rubbed against the driveway, it made that funny noise. And so swish, 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 and it disappeared in the back of the house. Well, the nurse sat for a minute, and then she jumped up and ran to the bottom of the stairs, and she said, Mr. Book, come quick, there's a ghost, there's a ghost. And all of us ran to the top of the stairs, and my dad said, what's the matter with you? I've just seen a ghost. I know it was a ghost. She had long white hair, and it was blowing in the breeze. And Dad said, hold on. Now we don't believe in ghosts. Well, she said, I saw it. I know I did. Well, he said, we'll watch for it, kids. Hit the windowsills. So all of us kids on the second floor put our chins on the windowsill, got our knees on the floor, and we looked out the window and watched the driveway down below. And we sat there, and we sat there, and we got sleepier and sleepier. And finally my dad said, go to bed, kids. There's no such thing as a ghost. So we went to bed. Well, the next night, the nurse is sitting in the chair, and she decided she was going to leave the light off this time. So she didn't even turn on the light. And again, she went to sleep, sitting in the chair. And she woke up again, and she heard the noise coming from the street. Same noise. Swish, 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 swish. And she sat frozen, and sure enough, there was the moonlight shining off of the white hair of the lady, flowing out behind her in the long white gown as she walked down the driveway, and she's dragging something back behind her. And the nurse jumped up as it disappeared. Swish, 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 and she ran to the bottom of the steps and said, Mr. Book, the ghost is back again. Come quick, come quick. And my dad said, what in the world is wrong with you? Oh, the lady's been back again, and she's dragging something black behind her. I saw her. Honestly, I did. And Dad said, all right, kids, hit the windowsills. So we all got on our knees and put our chins on the windowsill, and we sat. And we watched. And we watched. And nothing happened. And we got very sleepy, and Dad said, go to bed. Well, the next night, my dad said, all right, tonight, kids, we're going to sit up first. So you go to the windowsills, and we'll watch. Well, we got down on our knees and put our chins on the windowsill. And way in the night, when there was only a sliver of moon in the sky, from the back of the house came a woman with this long flowing white gown on and her hair down below her waist blowing in the breeze. And she disappeared out in front of the house. And pretty soon we heard her coming back. And we could hear this noise. Swish, 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 swish. We were frozen. Swish, swish, swish. And she disappeared out behind the house. And my dad said, I'm apologizing to you, nurse. You're absolutely right. There is a ghost. And I'm sorry. Well, the next night was Sunday. And we got out on the floor again and put our chins on the windowsill and waited to watch for the ghost, and nothing happened. Ghost didn't come. Well, the next day was Monday. And on Monday back then, all the women did their wash. And we didn't have washing machines and dryers, so you went out and hung your clothes on the clothesline. And my mother was out and back hanging her clothes up on the clothesline. And the lady who lived behind us on the opposite street, whose backyard faced our backyard, came over to visit with Mother. And her name was Mrs. Mashburn, and she'd been a friend for many, many years. Miss Mashburn was a widow, And she opened up her house to put for the soldiers to rent apartments in during the war. And she didn't have a lot of money. But Miss Mashburn came over to just visit with Mom, and while they were visiting, Mother said, "Miss Mashburn, have you been hearing any funny noises at your house or seeing anything strange?" And Miss Mashburn thought a minute and she said, "Well, no, Connie, I don't think so. Why?" Well, Mother said the night nurse has been seeing a ghost. It's late at night, and the lady comes by, and she's got on a long white gown, and her hair is flowing all the way down below her waist, and she goes to the front to the driveway, and she begins to drag something black down the driveway, and it makes a bad noise, and we've all seen her. And I'm afraid the night nurse is going to quit. And Miss Mashburn said, "Oh." Now, Miss Mashburn wore her hair in a big knot up on top of her head. And Miss Mashburn reached up and she began pulling bobby pins and what we called hairpins back then out of her hair. And pretty soon she shook it and it fell down and it went all the way down below her waist. And she said, "Connie, I'm so sorry. I'm your ghost. The people next door have been putting on a new roof, and they've been throwing their old shingles out on the driveway and by the curb, and I didn't want anybody to see me picking up somebody else's old shingles, so I've waited till I thought everybody was asleep and I forgot about the nurse. And I've been going and getting the shingles that were any good and dragging them back to my house in my nightgown with my hair down. I'm your ghost." Mother said, "Oh, my goodness. Miss Mashburn, I'm going to have the best time with that story tonight at the supper table. Don't you worry about it. I can't wait to tell them who the ghost is." And so that night at the supper table, Mother said to my dad, "Morris, I know who the ghost is." And Daddy said, "You do?" And Mother said, "Yes, I do." And then she told him about Miss Mashburn, and we all had a real good laugh. Now, here's the point, kids. Sometimes we see things and hear things, and we draw a conclusion, just like evolution, and we think maybe that's right because it sounds logical. When I told you this story, you thought it looked like a ghost and sounded like a ghost and acted like a ghost, and therefore it must be a ghost. But what we didn't realize was that it was really harmless Miss Mashburn picking up shingles for her roof. Now, if somebody tells you something opposite from what God's Word says, and it sounds logical and sounds like it's the truth, and it disagrees with God's Word, you toss it. Because maybe they just don't have all the information that they need. It's dangerous to make logical conclusions.